Hello and welcome to a DFS preview for the 2023 PGA Championship. My name is Eric and here's SweetSpotDFS. It's all about trying to hit the optimal lineup every single week. And these preview videos I like to do is combine all the components, basically look at all the stats in order for you to understand how to build the optimal lineup this week, because it's the only way we're going to take down a GPP. It's the only for sure way to take down a GPP is by building the optimal lineup. So we'll be going over the tournament and course information. We'll look at past optimal and GPP winning lineups just to see what salary structures usually work every single year, like putting what salaries together tend to take down a GPP or even the optimal. Then we'll take a look at a review for the AT&T Byron Nelson, because in reviewing that, you're going to get comfortable with the sweet spot process as well as the bucket system, which I will be ending this video with. We'll take a look at the bucket system for the PGA Championship. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the bucket system, check the description of this video out. I have a link that sends you to the video that explains all about it. It's a pretty short video, so you don't have to spend a lot of time there. Maybe watch the first 5 minutes of it to really understand what it's about, or try to understand as this video goes on. And of course, leave any questions in the comments down below. I'll be happy to answer them there, or email me at sweetspotdfs@gmail.com. I'll answer them there as well. So I guess before we get further into this preview, just a reminder, I like to do giveaways. I call this a subscriber giveaway, where there's a weekly version of it as well as a monthly version of it. The weekly builds into the monthly. So if you want entries into either the weekly giveaway or the monthly giveaway, all you have to do is first of all be subscribed and then comment down below. In any of the videos that I put out, you get one free entry per video. Pretty simple. I give $5 away every Monday, and then if we reach the sub goal that you can see all the way over there to the left, we're at 536 out of 550 subscribers. That's the goal, 550 subscribers. We're 14 short. It's a major championship week. I guarantee you we're going to get a few more. We're going to hit that goal by the end of the month. Once we do, I give away that $50. So it'll be the first Monday of the next month. I'll be doing a giveaway for $50. If for whatever reason we don't hit the sub goal, again, way over there to the left, I'm going to give a t-shirt away that has the SweetSpotDFS logo on it. Now, some people are like, well, I already have a t-shirt. I'll give you a golf ball. I have a logo golf ball. I can send you that instead. It's a Titleist Pro V. We can work something out. But let's try to get to that sub goal over there, way over there to the left. Again, 550 subscribers. That way I give $50 away the beginning of next month. So again, be subscribed, comment down below. That is how you get into the weekly as well as the monthly giveaway. And why don't we just run one right now? So I have up the weekly subscriber. Just so you're aware, the monthly subscriber giveaway is here as well. I add every entry that I have in the weekly giveaway to the monthly giveaway, obviously waiting for the end of the month to happen before I run that one. For the weekly giveaway, all I got to do, hit this drop down to a yes, and we're going to get a winner. So without further ado, let's go ahead and find our weekly subscriber giveaway winner. Joanne. Joanne wins everything. Joanne had 5 entries, and the one she won here comes from the DFS preview video. So that's this one. You guys want a chance to win $5 like Joanne? Again, be subscribed and comment down below. You'll get right away, you'll get put into the weekly giveaway next Monday. So congratulations, Joanne, once again. I don't know, that feels like that's like 3 weeks in a row or 4 weeks in a row. It's not rigged, by the way. I show you guys this every single time. It's not rigged. It's completely random. It just depends on whatever Excel wants to spit out at us. So unfortunately, the people I just put up on there, it was not you. It was Joanne instead. So congratulations, Joanne. We can obviously save up like we did last time. Maybe get a t-shirt, maybe a logo golf ball, something like that. So that is the weekly subscriber giveaway. Again, if you want to be in it, be subscribed and comment down below. It's all about participation. Now, I also have another giveaway of sorts, but this is more like a rebate, Prize Picks. If you're not on Prize Picks yet and you're in a state that allows it, there's a link in the description that'll send you to the homepage of Prize Picks. All you got to do is go to the sign up page. The Sweet Spot promo code will already be populated there. Once you sign up, put $20 in your account and you're going to get $20 back from me. It's a lot of word salad, I understand, but basically if you sign up using the Sweet Spot promo code and put at least $20 in your account, you're going to get $20 back from me. That's the short of it. Furthermore, PrizePicks is going to match your deposit up to $100. So if you put $20 in because you want to play this for free, you'll have $40 in your account. But if you want to get more money, more free money, go ahead and put more money into it. PrizePicks, again, it's going to match your deposit up to $100. So most of the content creators out there have this promo code or have a promo code that allows you to deposit match. I'm going to give you $20 on top of it just by using the Sweet Spot promo code. So again, link in the description. I appreciate all that do sign up using that promo code. So hope to see you signed up with that Sweet Spot promo code. And a quick reminder, if you didn't already know, there's a cheat sheet that you can follow along with me. Check the description of this video. That link will send you to this page. Once you're here, you don't have to do anything other than maybe use the filters that I have on here. You can certainly use the filters or check that file menu, go down and make a copy. Making a copy allows you to copy all this information. It allows you to alter it to whatever you like. I'm not sure why you'd want to alter it, but you certainly could if you make a copy of it. I don't have the tournament information in here, the tee times. I will once those come out. But you have everything else that I'll be covering in this video as well as in the strategy video, all at your disposal here at the Sweet Spot cheat sheet. So again, check the description of this video. There's a link there that'll send you straight there or straight to the cheat sheet. I will also have an optimizer ready once tee times come out. Now, here's the thing. I should have said this in the beginning of the video. Tomorrow, Tuesdays, I usually go live around 7 p.m. There's an issue with that this week. My real job, my 9-to-5 job, we have a deployment that starts at 7 p.m. So I will not be doing a live chat tomorrow. For those listening to this right now, if you want me to do a live chat Wednesday, let me know in the comment section of this. Just give me the time that works best for you. And then if I can get enough people interested in a live chat, I'll use the optimizer to build some lineups to answer, and I can obviously join and answer some questions. We'll see how long it goes, but I will most likely be building lineups for myself Wednesday night. So starting with video, the live chat will just bleed into whatever I'm doing for the night when it comes to building lineups. So again, if you're interested in that, you want a live video Wednesday night, leave it down in, leave your best time for that live video down in the description so I can see who's all interested and at what time. So again, that'll be, if we get enough people that want to do that, I will certainly do it Wednesday. Again, no live strategy video, but maybe a live, just a live Q&A essentially Wednesday night. Okay, I think that's everything. Cheat sheets available. The optimizer will be available tomorrow once tee times come out. Contact me at sweetspotdfs@gmail.com right there. Just popped up on the screen. Let me know you're interested. You do have to be subscribed, and you also have to participate on the channel before I send the optimizer out to you. So again, comment down below. I mean, I'm giving you a couple options on how to comment down below. Leave the time you'd like me to do a live chat at on Wednesday, or give me your 2 favorite golfers you're building your lineups around. Simple as that. Okay. Those are all the giveaway reminders. Let's go ahead and start with the tournament and golf course information. We're going to start with the tournament information, the tournament golf course information, starting right here with the tournament fact sheets, the GCSAA. You can go and check this out by following this website. Just put .org after it, and you'll find the tournament fact sheets down at the bottom of the page. You can find a plethora of information here. You can see the pars, front 9, back 9, and obviously the full par, and then the yardage. Usually it has the stimp meter up here. Does not look like that, but from what I gather around the industry, they're going to be pretty fast. Now, before I get further into this, I only bring this up, and I think this is worth noting. Anytime you listen to anybody doing a course breakdown, course information, They're all just data points to use in your own research. I think a lot of people forget to mention that. So if you want to look up par 70 golf courses and of all the golfers in the field, what is their scoring average? You certainly could do that, but you probably should add a couple more pieces of information, not just par 70s. Look to see a winning score probably between -6 and -10. I imagine that's probably what the score is going to be for this tournament. Everything is kind of pointing that this is going to be a tough tournament. So that would be another point. Like par 70, that's about 7,400 yards, where the winning score is between 6 under to 10 under. I think that would be a perfect starting spot. If anything, maybe err on the 10 under to 12 under range, or maybe even like broaden it, go 6 under to 12 under. That way you can cover everything. You can also use green size for your data research. If you want to use bunkers, bunkers are going to be a huge factor this week. So the number of bunkers probably is going to be a good data point as well. I don't really care so much about water hazards. I think there's a meandering creek that runs throughout this golf course. So you can see like the number of holes that is in play is 6. That does have an effect when it comes to the layout of this golf course and how the PGA players are going to have to do, how they're going to have to play with that in here. But I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Some of the most important information is just checking out the turf grass, because these are also data points that you can use in your research. Basically, whatever the greens are, I think you put at least 50% of your weights into that turf grass. If you wanted to use POA for, I mean, I guess not. I was going to say, if you wanted to use POA or ryegrass, whatever, for the rough, you certainly could. But you have bent grass approaches as well. And this is, I guess, I guess I wouldn't take this that important. The rough with the tall fescue, the Kentucky bluegrass, ryegrass mix, you could use that for like around the green, maybe some approach shots, but that's getting a little too narrow, a little too specific. I don't think you need to do that. I think bent grass is your best choice. And at the very least, if you want to do bent grass and just see what their average finishing position is on all bent grass golf courses, or again, what I was talking about earlier with the course difficulty, par 70, that kind of stuff, you could all add that together to really narrow down to see how good some of these guys are, or just do several different models that kind of separate all these pieces of information to really figure out who the best golfers are under each of those scenarios. So, like I said, this is probably, to me, some of the most important information. Green size is pretty important as well. If you wanted to marry this up with the yardage and the par, that would be fine. You could also use Donald Ross as your architect. That's a big deal. Donald Ross is known for greens that slope from back to front. You will want to be short on most of your approach. Like when you're hitting an approach shot, veteran golfers will know, don't go long. Going long creates harder up and down situations, harder chances to get par, harder chances to get birdies on par 5s if you can reach them in 2, all that kind of stuff. So that is important. Now, if I was putting a weight on that, I'd say maybe like 5 to 10 points, maybe not even 10, probably like 5 points when it comes down to what who the architect is. Just some influence, but not a huge influence. And of course, with these tournament fact sheets, you have additional notes. This is really nice to see. I would say like this one here doesn't help you with your research. So it's really nothing to even worry about. I'd also even say this one is also not indicative of your research. Like you wouldn't want to use that with your research. This one though, maybe. You can see that replacing the old bentgrass POA greens with just pure bentgrass, that just gives you more validation to use bentgrass for your grass stat. And of course, on the cheat sheet that I have bentgrass stats. Mine goes by average finishing position. Like I had said, at the minimum, I think that's a good place to start, is with just average finishing positions. So this includes all bentgrass golf courses, easy ones, hard ones, medium ones. So if you wanted to get more narrow, you certainly can on the websites that you use, but on my cheat sheet, it's pretty general. Just has the total amount of bentgrass events dating back to 2013, their average finishing position as well, and their percentage to finish inside the, or their top 10 finish percentage. So this is how many, like, this is the percent of time they finish inside the top 10. Jon Rahm is definitely by far your highest rated golfer. And of course, when you do visit the sheet, you can go ahead and put the filters on, and you can sort top to bottom to see who the best golfers are finishing inside the top 10 on bent grass. It is Jon Rahm. I know it's probably a little difficult for you to see. I can zoom in. But yeah, Jon Rahm is your top guy. And then if you want to do overall average finishing position, Jon Rahm also has the best average finishing position on bent grass. This goes back again to 2013. And if we want to look at one full calendar year, this goes back to the PGA Championship last year. Sort from, you know, bottom to top, low to high, I should say. And you're going to see Xander is the best guy within the last calendar year playing on bent grass golf courses. So use that information to whatever you like. I add it to my model. When you're on this cheat sheet and you go over here, this little portion right here, grass one, top 10 grass one, last year grass one, that all goes in here. I create points here. Again, you could modify this however you like, because then that goes into your point total over here. It won't update your rankings because it just gets, when you're sorting, it will get weird because I'm not sorting the score with it, but you certainly could if you wanted to. You could do those things on this cheat sheet. But just note that maybe the best way to do this would be like sorting from top to bottom when it comes to the sweet spot rank, and whatever totals that you see might be a little bit off. Like if you were to change one of these grass stats to, let's say like you like Cam Smith and you're like, no, he plays really good on bent grass, and you're going to not believe my stats. Give him 100 points. You can scroll over and see, oh, he's at 1095 now. He's actually above Tony Finau. So you would just you could just go ahead and update this as well if you wanted to. So he would be your new number 5, and then everybody in front of him would drop down 1. It's a lot of manual work. You don't have to do that. I don't suggest you to do that, but you could if you wanted to. Again, make a copy, and then it's available for you. So just wanted to bring that up because of grass stats. That is included with my cheat sheet. The rest of this tournament fact sheet, probably just disregard. Going to my sheet, the next thing that I like to do, typically when it comes to most like tournaments that have the same golf course played at the event, which obviously we don't with the PGA Championship. We have all of these different golf courses, some of them being rotating. We don't have that. What I would like to do, if it was the same golf course at the same event, would be looking at your finishing scores, figure out what the average score is to determine, you know, what data point you want to use with research. We don't have that this week, so not worth looking at past results. The other thing that I like to do is kind of map out. I know this is going to be an eyesore for most of you. I usually write a description of each hole. I didn't get the time to do that this week, so I, you know, excuse me on that. I apologize. I'm gonna zoom in just a little more. How about, I'll leave it right here. Actually, let's zoom out. I want you to be able to see the full screen. Just ignore the information over on the right side. So we'll look at it just like this. Again, it's an eyesore. I understand. I'm sorry. These are the columns you want to look at. Again, I mapped this out based off a shot shape. I'm looking at carry distance to certain dog legs. And golfers, you know, if there is a short carry distance from one of the dog legs, it's better to hit a particular type of shot shape around a dog leg, especially if there's trees that are blocking you on the short side of your dog leg. So let's say if a dog leg goes right, trying to hit a draw over those, if there's trees that line on the right side, trying to hit a draw over those trees isn't going to work out because you're going to hit them right into the trees. So that's where fading the golf ball is going to be more beneficial. And believe it or not, despite the golfers being as good as they all have a preferred shot shape. So just to, I guess, another thing to add to this, these are just preferred shot shapes. They're not required. Whatever I have on here are not required. And honestly, it's pretty negligible because I have 2 fades off the tee and 2 draws on approach. Basically, any shot shape is going to work at this golf course. But there are some kind of tight driving holes that the scenario I just mentioned, you'll have trees on the right side and it'll dogleg right. You really can't hit it over those trees. I did a little flyover on the PGA Championship. I looked at every single hole. I also kind of GPS, like satellite GPS'd it just to see the layout of each hole as well. There's a wonderful tool if you go to bluegolf.com, or if you just go Oak Hill Country Club Blue Golf, you're going to go to a website that's called Blue Golf. And as long as you have a sign-in, I mean, they don't take money from you or anything. If you have an account with them, you'll be able to see each hole and you'll be able to map it out. Now, sometimes they have the wrong picture of the hole, but they'll have the right par, the right yardage. You'll just have to figure it out if it happens. We do have that scenario this week. So if you do visit that website, you'll see that. I think it's like hole 6 or 7. They're backwards. One is a par 3, but it's showing the par 4 on the next hole, or vice versa. So just be cognizant of that. But either way, you can also see the layout that way. But I did the flyover. The flyover is nice. It starts from tee all the way to green. You can see what type of shot shape is going to be required, or what would not so much be required, but what would be preferred, or if a golfer is going to have to probably lay up on some of those dog legs, like that's obviously a possibility. So that's basically what I tried to provide here in the shot shapes. What is preferred? Because preferred shot shapes just increase scoring opportunities. And because we're playing a fantasy game, we want as many scoring opportunities as we possibly can get. Some could argue that this is going to be more of a save par type of tournament, like a US Open. But either way, being in a position to make a birdie is going to be very important. 3 points will be very important for every, because that's what you get for each birdie. 3 points is going to be a big deal, minus versus a half a point for par. Like, I'd rather my golfer get 3 bogeys and a birdie, 2 bogeys and a birdie, than get 3 pars in a row. So just be, I shouldn't say be cognizant of that or use that. It's just, that's something else to think about when it comes to breaking down a golf course. So basically, even amount of fades, even amount of draws. I would say, oh, hey, you could use my cheat sheet to see all the shot shapes that I have for each of these golfers for their preferred shot shapes, because, that's what I do. I look at golf swings. I break down golf swings. I understand which golfers like to do what. Obviously, these golfers can hit the shot. They can hit shot shapes usually both directions, but they all still have a preferred shot shape, and they usually go to it definitely in pressure situations. Definitely when there's a difficult shot in front of them, they're going to hit their preferred shot shape. So regardless if they can hit, but I can also hit shots both directions. I am more in control of my draw than I am my fade. So, and my draw is my preferred shot shape. PGA players are exactly the same way. They're just obviously better at controlling their golf ball than someone like me. Otherwise, you'd see me on tour. So anyways, you do have that information. If you want to use that, all I would say is probably, pause the video, screenshot this. I'll move the cursor, just screenshot it, see which holes matter. Not that big of a deal, honestly. So moving on to the tournament information, the only really thing to talk about here is your strength of field. How many golfers are in the field? There's 156. 156 golfers, and 20 is either 20 or 25 of them are PGA professionals. Now, for those that are unaware, the PGA Tour and the PGA of America are 2 different entities. The PGA of America are your golf professionals that are at golf courses. If you go to a golf course looking for a lesson, that's your golf professional. That's the PGA of America most of the time. They're usually licensed or have their Class A certificate from the PGA, letting people know that they have passed their basically their exams, if you want to call them that, from the PGA that allows them to teach under the moniker of a PGA professional. So there are 20 to 25. I can't remember. It's around 20. And if you were to scroll down to the bottom of the leaderboard, the salary leaderboard, like I remember Braden Shattuck, because I listen to the PGA Tour radio. He, I think, won one of the events. He's a PGA member. don't play them. Don't play any of them. That's where I'm getting at with this. If there's a golfer that is a PGA member and qualified through regionals, well, I guess through the national tournament that they had, I forget what that one's called. So I don't think it's regionals. Maybe it's sectionals. I can't remember what it's called. But all of those golfers, like your Wyatt Worthington the seconds. I can't remember if Stephen Elker is, but you wouldn't want to play him. John Daly actually withdrew, so I have to update my sheet. I can't remember if Sean McKeel is in this, or if he withdrew or not, but there are some golfers down here you just ignore. Don't play. Just don't play. There's no reason to. So find out who those PGA members are. Maybe I'll update the cheat sheet if I have time. Work is going to be very, very busy, so I'm not even sure if I'll have time to do that. But if you can, figure it out, and then just don't play those guys. Because remember, here at SweetSpotDFS, we're trying to hit the optimal lineup. The optimal lineup isn't going to be a PGA member who finishes 16th place. It's not going to be a PGA member. That's what I'd forecast the best scenario possible. More likely, maybe 1, 2, 3 of them make the cut. You don't want to play them. Even with the salary forgiveness it'll give you, you don't want to play them. So just don't. So just remember that. That's the unique part of this event. Again, 156 golfers. 912 is your strength of field rating. I have the old calculation when it comes to strength of field. The only thing that I'm actually missing from my calculation is like the home field advantage portion of it. But when it comes to OWGR and FedEx Cup points, that calculation together creates the strength of field. And I've been very consistent with those strength of field points. So if you watch any of my videos or anything like that, they're consistent with that score. Not the 912, but the calculation, just so you know. 912 is a high strength of field. That means there are some really good golfers in this event. It's basically your top golfers in the world are at this event. I'm pretty sure all of them are, but I'm just going to use the word most because I'm not sure, not positive. So really, that's really the only piece of information I need to talk to about tournament information, because we covered most of it under the golf course information. So that covers your tournament and golf course information for the PGA Championship. Let's move on to the next segment, which is your pass optimal and GPP winning lineups. So we start here in 2017. The purpose of looking at pass optimal and GPP winning lineups is to try to figure out, is there a pattern when it comes to building lineups? How comfortable should you be playing a 10K golfer or a 6K golfer or 3 7Ks? That's what we figure out in the GPP winning lineups as well as the optimal lineups while analyzing this. So in 2017, your optimal lineup left $2,000 on the table. Hard to do that. Don't do it. It just finding the right lineup that way is not realistic. But just to show you what the optimal lineup was, you actually use a $10,000 Hideki Matsuyama. And then we basically, we went to an $8,900 Justin Thomas, $7,500 Louis Oosthuizen, $7,300 Patrick Reed, $7,000 Kevin Kisner, and then a $6,800 Francesco Molinari. That together adds up to be $48,000. That's impossible. So I created a more realistic lineup to get you guys comfortable with, building some of these lineups. So I have basically everything here in blue. You got Ricky Fowler at 10-7 instead of Hideki Matsuyama. We have Justin Thomas, Matt Kuchar, both in the 8K range, high 8K range. One's 88, one's 89. 2 7s and a 6. So that's a 10, 2 8s, 2 7s, and a 6. And if you've followed me long enough, or if it's the first time, I usually try to encourage you to start out building your lineups with a 10K golfer, a 9K golfer, an 8K golfer, 2 7K golfers, and 1 6K. Or, quite simply, I just say, start with a 10-9-8, 7-7-6. That's how I usually phrase it. This one starts, or your more realistic lineup has a 10, skips the 9, and it has 8, 8, 7, 7, 6. So it's the exact same thing, but we're swapping out a 9 for an 8. And usually I will say you make up to 2 substitutions. So we're moving a 9 down to an 8. That's one substitution. That's the only substitution. But if you were to imagine there were 3 7s instead of having a 6 in there, then we swap one of the 6s up to a 7. Now we have 2 substitutions. So just want to reiterate that, or just to iterate it, so you understand that when I go through and talk about the next couple optimal lineups and GPP win lineups. In 2018, I apologize, I didn't record the GPP win lineup in 2017 or 2018, but I do have the optimal, and it left only $100 on the table. You started out with no 10K golfer, mind you, but we have 3 9K golfers. 3 of them. 3 9Ks, 2 7s, and a 6. Remember when I said, yeah, you can do 2 substitutions? So we go from a 10K golfer down to a 9K golfer and Brooks. So that's one substitution. We have our other 9K golfer in Tiger Woods. So, you know, basically we have our 10-9, but we swapped a 10 down to a 9. But instead of dropping to an 8, we get another 9. So now we made our 2 substitutions. But guess what? The rest of it goes 7, 7, 6. So you get your 2 substitutions. So that is 3 9s, 2 7s, and a 6. That's crazy. Going to 2019, we do have a GPP win lineup here, and an optimal and a realistic optimal. So your optimal lineup left $2,100 on the table. Don't do that. Just, again, I'm going to keep saying that. Don't do that. It's not a good practice. But that optimal, leaving a lot of money on the table, still starts with a 10K golfer. So that's Brooks Koepka at $10,400. Then we go to an $8,600 Jordan Spieth, $8,200 Patrick Cantlay, $7,000 Sung King, and 2 6K golfers in Matt Wallace and Luke List. So just to kind of look at this one, basically what we're doing is we're subbing down a 9 to an 8 because we have 2 8s, and we're subbing a 7 down to a 6 because we have 2 6s and only 1 7. So again, it still follows a 10 9 8 7 7 6 and makes two substitutions. Your GPP winning lineup are the golfers here in blue. So they actually started with 2 10K golfers. I believe we nicknamed these guys the Bash Brothers at this moment in time. So you had Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson, $11,100 and $10,400. Then you went down to an Adam Scott at $8,100, a Thomas Peters at $7,000, and then we had 2 6K golfers in Matt Wallace and Eric Van Rooyen. Those guys were both $6,700. That's a very stars and scrubs approach. Obviously, it worked out. The guy won the $4 GPP, scored 483 points. The optimal, I don't have the optimal calculated. So anyways, your realistic, like a more realistic optimal, is grabbing all the golfers, usually at the top, trying to figure that out, and not leave a lot of money on the table. So I started with Brooks Koepka at $10,400, the 2 8K golfers in Spieth and Cantlay, grabbing another 8K golfer, Matt Kuchar, a 7, and then a 6. So if you're following along again and you're like, well, hold on, what are the 2 substitutions there? We start with our 10, we sub a 9 down to an 8, and then we sub a 7 back up to an 8. So basically we go 10, sub a 9 down to an 8, then we take our 8, then we sub a 7 back up to an 8, and then we just go 7 6. So those are 2 substitutions. And that creates a more realistic optimal, and that leaves $200 on the table. All 6 of our golfers are inside the top 8. In 2020, the optimal lineup left $1,700 on the table. Impossible. Just very difficult to do. I always try to discourage people from trying to leave a lot of money on the table. It's too difficult. Don't do it. But your optimal started with, I'm trying to find it. Let me calculate this really quick. Okay, I found it. We're starting with a $9,000 Dustin Johnson, an $8,600 Colin Morikawa, an $8,400 Jason Day, two 7K golfers and Paul Casey and Sky Scheffler. We'll make it 3 with Matt Wolff. Hard to try to navigate through that, but we started with a 9. We didn't have a 10K golfer with us. So a 9, and then it was 2 8K golfers. Is that correct? Yep. Jason Day and Colin Morikawa, and then 3 7K golfers. So essentially, we're technically subbing a 10 down to an 8, and then we are subbing a 6 up to a 7. That's how I would look at that when it comes to your 2 substitutions. Although that kind of is cheating, because I usually only go 1 salary down for a substitution, so 10 to a 9. But we don't have a 10K golfer that was in the optimal. You can almost call it 3 substitutions. Up to you, but you're making, you still want to make 2 substitutions. Your GPP winning lineup that year had 5 golfers inside the top 4. That's insane. Now that's going to get it done. But they had Bryson at 10-3, Dustin at 9,000, Colin Morikawa at 8,600, Scheffler and Finau in the 7K range, and then they had Ryan Palmer down in the 6K range. So if you were following along with that, that was a 10-9-8, 7-7-6. They got it done. Using Ryan Palmer, who finished 43rd, but still scored 76 points down here. So that's something that can happen, especially with someone as volatile as Ryan Palmer. It looks like I have a realistic optimal that I didn't even put over on the side here, but it starts with Bryson. Then you got your 9, your 8, your 2 7s, and the 6 that's up here, and you're leaving $200 on the table. So that follows the 10-9-8, 7-7-6. Let's see how much it actually scores. It scores 608 points. Your GPP winning lineup that year scored 584.5. So obviously the realistic optimal would have beaten that, and the optimal scored 610. So that's actually pretty darn close to the optimal lineup. Like what, 2 points behind? Yeah, 2 points behind. So this scored 608. The optimal scored 610. So a little bit easier doing the 10-9-8, 7-7-6 here, or the other one is, you know, subbing a 10 down to an 8 and then subbing a 6 up to a 7. That's probably pretty difficult to do. In 2021, your optimal left even more money on the table. Again, we're not trying to do that. We're trying to do the realistic optimal, which if the optimal tends to or doesn't leave a lot of money on the table, we have a really good shot at actually hitting the optimal. But we want to be realistic with our approach. We can't really shoot for the stars without really aiming at something. So your optimal leaving that much on the table. Remember, this is Kiawah Island. Phil Mickelson won at $6,700. Brooks Koepka was second, $9,500. Louis at $8,000. We had Paul Casey at $77, Padraig Harrington at $63, and Justin Rose at $8,100. Pretty hard to do. The Millie Maker winning lineup, your GPP winning lineup that year, had Phil, Brooks, and Louis. Also had Justin Rose, so 4 of the optimal lineup golfers, but then had Hideki Matsuyama and Sungjae Im. Just if you're trying to figure out how that's created, that's using 2 9K golfers, 2 8K golfers, make that 3 8K golfers, and a 6. So a pretty balanced build, but jumping or adding Phil Mickelson to it. Seems like this was probably a lineup built around Phil Mickelson, or they just like those 5 golfers, like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's just put Phil in it. Because the other names are pretty strong. So that was your Millie Maker. Now your realistic lineup, your realistic optimal, scored 520.5 points. Millie Maker scored 501, so it beats it by 19. The optimal scored 529, so it's really only it's only 9 points behind it. You would have started out with Brooks Koepka you would start out with Colin Morikawa at $9,800, then go to Brooks at $95, Louis at $8, Rosie at $8, a 7, and a 6. So you still have your 2 substitutions, right? You're going a 10K down to a 9. We'll just say that's Colin Morikawa. He can pretend to be our 10K substitute. That's probably a good way to put it. He's our 10K substitute. We go to a 9K. We also have our 8K, but then we have our 7K substitute in Louis Oosthuizen at 8K. So those are your two substitutions because we can then follow it up with a 7 and a 6. So again, that was 9 points behind the optimal, but still 20 points above the Millie Maker. And it's really following the 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 approach by making a couple substitutions. Last year, 2022, your optimal left $1,600 on the table. So you're seeing a huge trend with leaving money on the table. Again, I don't encourage leaving money on the table. Not that much, at least. $500 or less is what you want to leave on the table, or $600 or less. If you use $49,400 of your salary, you're in a good spot, but you want to do more than that. Or I shouldn't say you want to do more than that, but that would be your lowest point. The lowest amount of money you would spend. Your optimal that year, though, all 6 of your guys here at the top. So that's Justin Thomas, Will Zalatoris, Cam Young, Tommy Fleetwood. Those, so 10, 8, 7, 7, and then 2 6K golfers. And that left $1,600 on the table. It scored 519 points. Your GPP win lineup scored 502. So there was only a 17-point difference there. It used up all the money that DraftKings allows you, and it uses the top 5 guys. So Justin Thomas, Will Zalatoris, Cam Young, Mito Pereira, and Tommy Fleetwood. But it also has Joaquin Niemann down here at $8,500. So there's no 9K golfer there, but it goes 10, 8, 8, 7, 7, 6. It's just it'll always be a common trend in a lot of lineups that take down a GPP or an optimal lineup, having at least one 6K golfer in it and kind of following the 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 model, that approach. Your realistic optimal lineup scored 515 points. Optimal was 519. GPP was 502. So we still beat the GPP by following this realistic. Again, don't want to leave more than $600 on the table. We're leaving exactly $600 on the table. And it's these top guys that you see. $10,000 Justin Thomas, $8,900. Then we have 3 7Ks and a 6K. So again, you're still following the 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 approach. We don't have a 9K golfer. So really, I guess that's your 2 substitutions or just one, depending on how you look at it. We're subbing a 9 down to a 7. So it's either you think we're subbing a 9 to an 8 and then an 8 to a 7. You certainly could do it that way. Or it's just one big leap, a 9 down to a 7. But it still follows, still works. So very interesting dynamics when it comes to choosing your golfers. Now, one thing I've noticed when it comes to me building my lineups is I tend to include the whole 6K pool, or at least a pretty large amount of golfers in the 6K pool. Let's look at some of these names. Mito Pereira, he was a favorite. One of the long shot favorites, I should say, heading into this event. So at $6,700, that was a pretty good price. And I guess let's see what his ownership was in 2022. 10% owned. For a 6K golfer, that's pretty high. Whereas Chris Kirk was another 6K golfer. He was only 2% owned. But when it comes to name value, those are good golfers. If we put them at the Honda Classic, they're probably in the 8K, maybe 7, high 7, mid 8K range. And then you can also add Brendan Steele into that mix too, who, if you put it the Honda Classic, would be in the 8K range if he wasn't on the Live Tour now. So a lot of good names there with the 6K range. If we look at previous years with 6K golfers, Patty Harrington came out of nowhere, right? Same with Phil Mickelson, but guess what? They're previous major winners. That's how you say it. They're major winners. They've already won a major before. So those are good names. One surprise here would be Harry Higgs at $6,400. That came out of nowhere. His recent form was terrible. So keep that in mind. You could have a 6K golfer like that show up. Same goes with Kevin Streelman. I'm not saying his recent form was terrible. He's a savvy veteran. He can get it done. But just noting some of the 6K golfers there. In 2020, our first 6K golfer is Joel Dahmen. Now, Joel Dahmen had a pretty good stretch of golf leading up into the PGA Championship, where he had a couple 20, top 20 places, finishing places. That's pretty good, especially a golfer who's in the 6K range. You had Siwoo Kim, who had already won on tour at that time in the 6K range. He was 13th place, so we don't really consider that or don't really count that. But you had two pretty, I wouldn't say prominent, names in the 6K range there, but decent winners on the PGA Tour. Let's put it that way. They were winners on the PGA Tour. Maybe not Damon at that time in 2020. Probably not. Can't remember where his first win came from. I think it was Corrales, but I don't remember which year. Here's one of those odd ones. Would be Matt Wallace. Same kind of goes with like Luke List in 2019. So those are kind of two. I mean, Matt Wallace would have definitely been an odd one. We don't have really any good lead-up form. Had finished 19th at the PGA Championship the year before, so maybe that's something to look at. When it comes to our 6K golfers. I don't know if that's a trend that we can follow. It doesn't look like in 2020 we can do that. Or in 2021. So it looks like that's just unique to 2019. Yeah, so there's interesting name. Now, Luke List, we all know, is a ball striking darling. Can't putt, but super good with his driver, super good with his irons. So there's something to that when it comes to Luke List's name that you see up there. And then I guess Eric Van Rooyen and Ches Reavie are kind of some odd names, but they're also winners on tour now as well. Now, that's more of a forecasted thing because Eric Van Rooyen had not won on tour in 2019. He ended up winning the Barracuda. Is that or the Barbasol? One of the two. Same goes with Ches Reavie. But he had won on tour prior to that. So maybe that's the one thing we need to look when it comes to 6K ranges, is trying to find previous tour winners. And I guess if we can forecast a tour win for one of these guys, maybe that's a good thing, but that's probably going to be too difficult to do. Yeah, Stuart Sink was a winner. I mean, I guess he has a second place finish, being a $6,700 golfer there. An older guy, but not super old in 2018. What did he win in 2021 or 2022? 2 or 3 times. So, yeah, prominent guy there with Stuart Sink. And then who else do we have? Ches Reavie, Brennan Stone. So some odd names here as well. But yeah, if you're going to choose a 6K golfer, it seems like we want a prominent guy. Someone who has won on tour before, or I guess that has the pedigree to have won on tour, like Francesco Molinari has won on tour before. I don't know if he won the Open Championship at that before this time. Maybe he did. Can't remember what year that was. Was that 2019? 2018? But I know he had won on tour prior to this event in 2017. Graham Dillette, that's kind of a surprise, although we knew he was a good ball striker as well. Jordan L. Smith was a good Brit, an Englishman, I should say. That's kind of an odd one. So Matt Wallace and Jordan L. Smith, they kind of meet that oddball criterion, both come from England. So maybe we need an English golfer in the 6K range. I don't know. That's probably looking too far into it, but that's kind of what I think about when it comes to the 6K ranges. We need to figure out some factors that go into it outside of it just being random choice. Because with a major championship like the PGA Championship, some of these it's not random. You can figure out who those golfers are. So I guess in 2023, who are 6K golfers that we can look that have won on tour before? Aaron Wise has won on tour before. Burmester has not. Adam Hadwin has won on tour before. So too has Tom Hoagie. So too has Matt Kuchar. Brian Harmon has won on tour before. So has Mackenzie Hughes. Francesco Molinari. Again, we're looking on the PGA Tour, not like worldwide, where you could lump in like Thomas Peters, Jordan Smith, Adrian Meronk, those guys. We're looking at winners. Sepp Straka has won on tour. So too has Danny Willett, your Masters champion. There's Patty Harrington once again, if you want to go there. KH Lee, he's won on tour before as well. Sadly, Patrick Rogers has not. I think Scott Stallings has. I'd have to double check that one, but I think he has. Brendan Steele, your live tour golfer, he has won on the PGA Tour before. Adam Svensson won Fall Swing. He has won on tour as well. So too has Joel Damon. We can count Nick Hardy's win at the Zurich Classic. That can count. Why not? Kevin Kisner down here at $6,500. Nick Taylor, $6,500. Zach Johnson. These are all people who have won on tour. I think Trey Mullinax has won on tour. I think. I am also not sure about Andrew Putnam. I can't remember. I don't think so. But JT Poston down here at $6,300 has won on tour before. So too has Martin Keimer. He's a major champion. So, hey, we've talked about major champions winning. Walker is a major champion. He's won the PGA Championship. Let's see, what other 6K golf? We probably just keep the other 6K golfers away. Although Y.E. Yang has won a PGA Championship, we're going to stay away from him because I believe he's now on the Champions Tour, and we probably just don't want to play Champions golfers unless their names are Padraig Harrington and Phil Mickelson. I think we'll probably just leave it there, but we've highlighted a few names that have won on tour, and Luke Donald has won on tour. Forgot about that. Anyone else that you can find that has won on the PGA Tour, those are golfers that are probably worth playing or taking shots at. So there's a few of them here. Let's count them out. Starts with Wise up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to Molinari. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 to Hardy. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and we're not going to include Y.E. Yang. So 24. Now, it is my belief you don't play a 6K golfer more than 4% of the time. Well, we have nearly 25 golfers. You built 100 lineups, there's your 4%. Because if we play them all 4 times, perfect. We have 100 lineups built with at least one of these 6K golfers. You're going to have a 4% chance to, you know, have the right 6K golfer in the that will be in the optimal lineup. But yeah, I don't know if you want to go down that deep of the rabbit hole, but that's kind of what I do when it comes to building lineups. So I just wanted to go through that. That's a little different than what I typically do with Pass Optimal and GPP winning lineups. Usually I like to focus on the 10 and the 10, the 9, the 8K range and build lineups that way. Just so you know, if you wanted to build one combination of each 10 and 9K golfer, you would have to build 45 lineups to do that. Because there are 5 10K golfers and there are 9 9K golfers. I'm sorry, there are 8. No, there are 9 9K golfers. So it's basically 9 times 5, 45. Now, if you wanted to pair up each 10 with each 9 as well as each 8, you'd have to build, I think it was like 545 lineups, something like that. It's ridiculous. Or maybe it's 345. I can't remember the exact number, but I think it's 345. Good luck. And then you have at least probably a good start to an optimal lineup. Like you have a good chance to have 3 of the top golfers be in the optimal, but you have to get the other 3 golfers correct. So that's probably impossible. Don't do that. But anyways, that's going to wrap up Pass Optimal and GPP winning lineups. Let's go ahead and get into a review now. We're reviewing the AT&T Byron Nelson because in the preview of our PGA Championship, this is going to go straight into the bucket system. So what you see on the screen is the bucket system for the AT&T Byron Nelson. What I want you to focus your attention on is this column right here that says this year's totals. We can see how many golfers from each of these buckets. So basically you're looking at each of these buckets over here and then cross-referencing all the way across to see how many top 10 golfers or how many golfers were inside the top 10 for each of those buckets, how many were in the optimal lineup, and how many were in the sweet spot optimal. Now, we don't really look at the sweet spot optimal when it comes to looking at the success of this column. We just look at the numbers in here. These numbers have to fall in between the numbers over here. Now, the max projection we always round up and the min projection we always round down. So I can see one scenario that we need to look at be your last year's 6s. Now, we had 5 golfers right here, this number right here, 5 golfers that were inside the top 10. My projection shows we wanted 2 to 4. Remember, we're rounding up in the max projection, we're rounding down in the min. So that projection is 2 to 4. So you're like, oh, you failed. That one failed. However, we're chasing the optimal lineup. This is just kind of a, if you wanted to look at like a tracking system, this is the general vicinity we want to be in. The optimal lineup is the exact location we want to be. So there were 4 golfers in the optimal lineup from that bucket. Ding, 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 ding. It is within that 2 to 4 range. So therefore it nets a yes for success. And that applies for every bucket. When you scroll all the way down, 36 out of 36 buckets were correct. We even said, or I had mentioned, we didn't even really have to look at the tournament history buckets if you didn't want. Because at the AT&T Byron Nelson, they were playing TPC Craig Ranch, which it was the 3rd year that it had been played there. We really had our first look at course history. If we wanted to use course history just for those 3 years, we could have. I didn't really feel comfortable just using course history, so I used tournament history, which went back to 2013. That included golf courses like Las Colinas. Oh shoot, I already forgot the other one. One of them that I think Aaron Wise won at. Trinity Forest, I think that was the other one. And then obviously TPC Craig Ranch. But had you used the tournament history buckets, those also hit. Those were successful, 100% successful. So again, bucket system was 100% successful, which gives us the best opportunity for the Sweet Spot Optimal to actually be the optimal. Let's double check to see if that actually happened this week. So I come here to the 2023 recent form page. I see the optimal left $600 on the table. The Sweet Spot Optimal did not. So the optimal and the Sweet Spot Optimal were not the same. But as long as the Sweet Spot Optimal can beat the GPP winning lineup, that means the Sweet Spot process was successful this week. There is one more component to bring into this, but I'll add it here at the end. And that's the marquee tee times, because that also is included in the Sweet Spot Optimal that you can't see here on the screen. So when it comes to the optimal, we left $600 on the table. And we started with Tyrrell Hatton, which is very interesting because Tyrrell Hatton and Scotty Scheffler were your only 10K golfers for the Byron Nelson. This was almost a spitting image of the Mexico Open, where Jon Rahm and Tony Finau were your only 10K golfers, 10K and above golfers. Tony Finau was the lesser priced golfer at the Mexico Open, whereas Jon Rahm was the most expensive golfer. Finau was in the optimal lineup there. This year, Scheffler and Hatton, the only 10K golfers. Tyrrell was in the optimal lineup. So that's crazy. A lot of people were saying this is an exact copy. And guess what? Tony Finau was first place at the Mexico Open. Rahm was second place. Here, Hatton was in the optimal lineup in 5th place. Scotty was also in 5th place, but not in the optimal. He actually scored 5.5 less points than Tyrrell Hatton. So it's fun. Like this fantasy golf stuff is, there are layers to it. So very interesting. If you did start with Scotty, like the GPP winning lineup, by the way, we'll get there. You were doing just fine. You were doing just fine. So anyways, the optimal starts with Tyrrell Hatton at $10,100. Jason Day, $9,400. Siwoo Kim at $9,100. Eckroat, Austin Eckroat, that is, at $7,000. Norman Vincent at $7,200. And CT Pan, which if you're with me in the preview video, as well as the strategy video, we talked about CT Pan a lot. He was one of my favorite plays. This is a shout out to Gabriel Brown, who tried to convince me that CT Pan, I mean, he saw him at the Wells Fargo kind of, he had, what's that, kinesiology tape, or I forget what it's called. I think it's kinesiology tape on his wrist. It's like, yeah, he didn't look sharp. And he played okay at the Wells Fargo, but I was like excited to use CT Pan. I think has won on tour before. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's a quality golfer and someone to keep your eye on, honestly. CT Pan, absolutely. In the Rainmakers, by the way, get those cards super cheap right now, man. Go get them super cheap and then sell them when because he's going to be, I think there's going to be a couple tournaments coming up where he has a chance to win, or he's going to be a good fit for some of these tournaments. So Anyways, I talked about him in the preview, talked about him in the strategy. We went over tee time. Like, go watch that strategy video. I rewatched it as I was trying to find all the names to do giveaways. Lots of good information in that strategy video. This is a reminder to myself in the future to go and check out that strategy video that I put out for the Byron Nelson, because it was really good. So anyways, you basically could have started your lineups with excuse me. You could literally start your lineups with a 10-9-8, 7-7-6. However, you still have to make your 2 substitutions, right? Actually, I think we just make 1. So we have Tyrrell at 10 and Day at 9. We do not have an 8K golfer, but we sub that 8K golfer up to a 9K, and then we got our 2 7s and a 6. So we just did 1 substitution. Worked out. Your GPP win lineup, by the way, started with Scotty Scheffler, Jason Day. That's where you started. And then he went to 3 7K golfers. Vincent, Gim, and Eckroat. 3 7K golfers, and then CT Pan at $6,600. He left $900 on the table. This is your $5 drive the green. Left $900 on the table. That's pretty ballsy, and it worked out for him. So congratulations. The optimal scored 794 points. Your GPP win lineup scored 756. So there's like 34 points between the two. Well, give or take. Well, what did I say? Yeah, almost exactly 40 points between the two. Your Sweet Spot Optimal scored 775 points. So it does overtake the GPP win lineup, which just ensures the Sweet Spot process this the week for the AT&T Byron Nelson was 100% successful. And your Sweet Spot Optimal started with Tyrrell, Day, Siwoo, and then 3 7K. So we make our 2 substitutions. We sub an 8 up to a 9, and we sub a 6 up to a 7. Ryan Palmer was one of those that I talked a lot about. CT Pan, although he was not in the Sweet Spot Optimal, he was also talked about. But yeah, okay, never mind. I don't know where I was going with that one, but I did talk a lot about Ryan Palmer. Now, to discuss some interesting information when it comes to marquee tee times and just tee times in general, remember in the strategy video, we sorted from game top down. Someone was like, "Hey, do you like CT Pan a little bit more now that he's one of the first golfers out?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course I do." We did this exercise. We looked at all of the years I had tee times for, and we noticed within the first 4 to 5 groups there were 2 golfers that were in the optimal lineup. Now, let's see here. Trying to do this carefully. There we go. So basically, it goes by groups like this. You can see all the different game numbers or whatever. We had an optimal lineup here, CT Pan. He was in the 2nd game, but that was the first group to go out on hole 10. So basically, every odd number starts, basically, this would be the first group out. CT Pan would also be part of the first group. This Kazire, Austin Cook, Chris Stroud group would be the 2nd group out on hole 1. And then Bez and those would be the 2nd group out on hole 10. So 3rd group, 4th group, 4th group, all the way down to our 5th group, we get Tyrrell Hatton. I was a huge Adam Scott truther. I thought it was Adam Scott, and that was fine. He finished 8th place. That was pretty darn good. But Tyrrell Hatton was in the 5th group down here. If you add him and CT Pan, if you started there, like we were talking about, 2 golfers within the first 4 or 5 groups were going to be in the optimal lineup. Well, shoot, I was really close when it came to Adam Scott. He finished 8th, scored 112 points. I mean, Tyrrell scored 127, so he probably was still going to beat Adam Scott even if Scott finished in 5th place. It was pretty close. I really liked Adam Scott. And I always tell you, never fall in love with a 6K golfer. So I wouldn't even have said go all in on CT Pan, but I also went all in on Matty Schmidt. So I don't really take my advice that well sometimes. I wanted to be really aggressive. And hey, by the way, I forgot to mention this in the beginning. I took down a GPP this year for this week, for the Byron Nelson. I won the quarter arcade. Not the highest entry fee GPP I wish it would have been. It would have been great to do that in the $5, but the lineup I put together in the quarter arcade won. And if it was in the $5, it would have finished 7th place. So I'm hopeful, or I was glad to win a GPP. That was one of the goals. That was one of the goals this year, was to win a GPP. So we finally did. So that feels good. I should go find that lineup. I think I posted it on Twitter for people to see. Yep. Here we go. So I had Tyrrell Hatton, Jason Day, Benny Ann, Seabez, Ryan Palmer, and CT Pan. See, when I was talking about Ryan Palmer and CT Pan, of course, and I had my guy CT Pan in there. I believe this was a lineup strictly built out of FOMO. I kid you not. I think I'm like, I don't have a lot of Tyrrell Hatton lineups. I might as well just build a bunch of Tyrrell and Jason Day lineups because I'm not going to play them in any of my lineups. This was a completely FOMO lineup, but Ryan Palmer and CT Pan, those were golfers that I wanted to have exposure to. So, hey, we did it. Took down the quarter arcade. Actually, here. Just further proof. Quarter jukebox, not the arcade. Still, same thing. Quarter jukebox. We got first. 711 points. Yeah, pretty sweet. Now, just to wrap up on the sweet spot process, I go with the marquee tee times. And if you don't know what the marquee tee times are, they're basically a rank order of golfers in a group that have the lowest sweet spot score combined. Or the sweet spot rank combined, but it also is that would be the highest score. So the rank. So I just tally up all these rankings, like the Scheffler, Day, KH, Lee lineup that had 12. That when you add these numbers up, the sweet spot ranks, it comes out to 12. When you add up the Hatton, Hideki Matsuyama, and Tom Kim lineup, that equals 13. So obviously this is group 1. This would be group 2. Group 1, group 2. And I rank order these. So I look at the top 9 groups. I only look at the top 9 because that's unfortunately the amount of groups that allows me, that Excel allows me to use. So can't really do much about that. But it's these top 9 groups. And basically the rule is you choose 2 to 4 groups and you find one golfer from each of those groups to put in your lineup. You do not want to pair golfers up from the same group together because you don't see that in the optimal lineup very often. So you can already tell Scheffler and Day being highlighted in blue, they're your GPP, they're in the GPP winning lineup. So the GPP winner did that. He put those golfers together. So yeah, you can still win a GPP, but this is about hitting the optimal lineup. And that isn't how you do it. In fact, you can get there with one of the guys, Jason Day. And then there's Tyrrell Hatton. So 2 golfers were in the optimal lineup at the AT&T Byron Nelson. So again, the sweet spot process was 100% correct. Also, when you use the sweet spot process, you could have built a lineup that had Tyrrell, Jason Day, as well as Ryan Palmer in the marquee tee times. And it was perfect. And by the way, that was my quarter arcade. Tyrrell, Jason Day, and Ryan Palmer. I practice what I preach. I know I just recently said, don't fall in love with the 6K golfer. And, you know, I kind of break that rule every once in a while. But, you know, sometimes you get greedy and you just want to. But the one rule I won't break is the marquee tee times. I'll always choose 2 to 4 groups and only one golfer each because I like to play the numbers. It's a little different than picking a 6K golfer. I'm gonna defend myself here. Picking a 6K golfer, if you can find the right one, that like substantially narrows down your player pool. So you have a better chance to hit the optimal lineup if you do find the right 6K golfer. It's a lottery in the 6K range. It's impossible. Like, don't do that. It's not smart. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Okay. Well, I hope y'all did well. This is the second year in a row that the AT&T Byron Nelson has done me well. I won the Nagels Bagels last year, and that winner take all was $450. This one, obviously, I won the quarter jukebox, which was $250, so I got that. But I also took down a winner take all, one of those $50 ones where you just put a quarter in. I don't put a lot of money into stuff. I think I had $59 into this week, and I came out with $320. So pretty good ROI. It was great. Byron Nelson's has been very good to me. So, anyways, that wraps up the review of the AT&T Byron Nelson. So hopefully that'll give you a little bit more confidence using the sweet spot process going forward. And speaking about going forward, let's go ahead and get right into the bucket system. So if you are following along with me, what you could do is get to the cheat sheet and come to the bucket system portion of it. Put a filter on there that says the bucket system, and that's how you can follow along with me. Because what I like to do is put a filter and just go stat by stat. We have 6 stats when it comes to the bucket system. We're looking at finishes last year. So golfers that had, well, we're just looking at finishing places from the 2022 PGA Championship, last year's PGA Championship. Then we're looking at finishes from last week. Now, both of these 2 buckets include golfers who did not play either last year or last week. Last week was the AT&T Byron Nelson. There were other events. I do not include those. I'm just including PGA Tour events, and that's it. I frankly don't care about live golf. Like, there are some interesting points, and I would have to put enough data together to see if any of those things come to fruition. You know, like playing a live golf event prior to a PGA Tour event, does it show any success? Obviously, there hasn't been a lot of time to figure that out, so I don't include it. Like I analyze these patterns. When there's only one instance to look at, that's not a pattern. So I don't look at live golf. I also don't look at the Euro Tour because we don't have a lot of Euro Tour golfers that come over here that had played the week before. You know, you had Sung J.M. that played the week before, but in Korea. I'm not going to look at that. I don't care. Like, if he does well, awesome. But I'm not going to use his win from the week before in Korea or in South Korea to be anything of substance. So we're looking at last year's stats, last week's stats. Does playing last week matter? And if so, what finish shows up inside the top 10 more often than not? Tournament history, recent form. This looks back at your last 7 weeks. Then I'm looking at salaries, which we kind of did during the past optimal and GPP lineups. This will just further validate which golfers we want to choose or select, you know, which salaries we want to select from. And then we also have strokes gain stats. So I do strokes gain a little different. I highly encourage you to go check out the video in the description, or click that link that goes to the Bucket System Explained video. Listen to what I speak about strokes gain stats. It's different. I'm really just looking at off the tee in putting. Off the tee dictates approach. But because off the tee comes first, I don't really look at approach that much. Approach is baked into these stats, but again, you're going to have to go watch that video to understand. If I explain it here, it'll be 30 minutes longer than what it needs to be. So go watch that video to understand it. But let's go ahead and let's put that filter on and just clear everything out and select last year. Does playing the PGA Championship last year or the year before matter for the current year or the year that we're looking at? So how about having a top 20 finish? Does that matter? Well, there's a 19% success rate. It's pretty good. Now, one way to look at this, by the way, consider this like a team. Last year, one bucket is a team. It's looking at all golfers dating back to 2013. And we're looking at all golfers who finished top 20 the year before. We're looking at top 10 golfers the year of. So basically, we're trying to predict who's going to be inside the top 10. So here in 2023, we're looking at 2022 stats. In 2022, we were looking at 2021 stats. And just so you're aware, I keep all this information. This is the engine. This is the count that we're looking at. You know, top 10 finishes. We're comparing how many show up inside the top 10. These are all top 10 finishers, like the numbers that are represented here. We're comparing this to basically how many of those golfers were in those buckets. And that's how we come up with a percentage over here for success percentage. That carries over to my summary page, essentially. So 19.34%. It's a pretty high success rate. So of all golfers that have ever been in this bucket, we have almost a 20% flip rate of finding a golfer inside the top 10 the following year that they top 20'd at the PGA Championship. So we have 21 golfers in that bucket this year. Where on average, we see around 20. And if we use 20%, just if we want to do it this way, we use 20%, we multiply it into 21, we get 2. The projection says we want somewhere between 1 to 4. Remember, we're rounding up with our max projection. We're rounding down with our min projection. So 1 to 4. Well, 2 is right in the middle. So I can either say select 2 or give you a range. I think there will be somewhere between 1 to 4 golfers inside the top 10 that had a top 20 finish the year before. So we see it every single year. And mind you, by the way, there's a 100% frequency rate, meaning every single year we've had a golfer inside the top 10 who had top 20 the year before. And then also another point to that is we've seen at least 2 every single year. It's not at least 1, it's at least 2. Now, when it comes to the optimal lineup, we've seen at least 1 in the optimal lineup every single year from this bucket. So that's telling you right away, this is a very important bucket to select your golfers from. Now, some of you might just be like, wow, top 20 finish the year before is probably going to be a good golfer. You're most likely right. Let's go ahead and take a look at who our golfers are from the last year bucket. The last year bucket 1. If you want to follow along with me, go ahead, drill down on the little filter icon, go to DraftKings. We are going to look at the last year 1 bucket. So you want to go to the last year column, click in the little filter, clear everything out, and go to last year 1. Well, looky here. We actually, by the way, if you saw earlier, there were 5 10K golfers, but in this bucket, there's only 1. It's Rory McIlroy. So of all the 10K golfers, is that true? I want to make sure. So of all the 10K golfers, yeah, here we go. Here's all our 10K golfers, and look at their finishes from last year. Rory's the only guy that finished inside the top 20. So there's already a lot of conversation about Rory McIlroy. This golf course being a really good fit for him. Now I'm just also proving to you he's in a bucket that we're projecting somewhere between 1 to 4 golfers to finish inside the top 10. Now, I wish I had my combinations that go with the buckets, like the bucket combinations, because maybe it would tell us that a 10K golfer with a top 20 finish the year before is like 100%, frequency rate. If that was the case, I would say hammer Rory all day, every day for this PGA Championship. Like, he's the guy you want to anchor your lineups around. If you already have that conviction, I am just providing more fuel to your argument, to your feelings of validation. I think Rory's a wonderful play. Then we've got Xander, JT, your defending champ, Cam Smith, your live tour golfer, Cam Young, another popular choice this week, Max Homa, Tyrrell Hatton, lots of good names, by the way. So again, 1 to 4 is the projection. Can that projection, can there be more golfers to finish inside the top 10? Yes. We just saw that with the AT&T Byron Nelson. But when it comes to the optimal lineup, no. I think that projection's pretty good. 1 to 4, yeah, I don't know, it's kind of silly, but because it's a pretty large range, I think you want 2. If I'm being honest, because the salaries you see in front of you aren't super hard to build lineups around. So finding 2 golfers, I think, is imperative from this bucket to build your lineups around. And again, you can find 2 to 4 or 1 to 4. And if you want more, if you want to put more into your lineup, go for it. The world's your oyster, man or lady. Like you can do whatever you want. It's just hitting the optimals. That's not the way. It is not the way. So, anyways, 1 to 4 is what I'm projecting to be inside the top 10. Realistically, I think you just want to anchor your lineups around 2, maybe 3. Remember, not every year has there been 2 or more in the optimal lineup. But I guess if we wanted to dig a little further, let's go look at the buckets. Scroll all the way down to our optimal lineups. So this is the bucket we're looking at. This is our optimal lineups every single year. So we've seen 1 three times, but we've seen 2 or more 3 times as well. So it's a 50% chance to have 2 or more in your optimal lineup. And really, when we're looking at 6 years, 2 out of the 6 years had 3 or more, there's a 33% chance we'll have at least 3 golfers. That's kind of how I look at it. And especially when we look at the bucket or the golfers inside this bucket, yeah, there's several good golfers. Now, there's one thing you have to think about is salary construction. Can we put 3 of these 9K golfers or 2 9Ks and an 8K golfer together, or even a 10-9-8? We certainly can. You certainly can. And Rory is a pretty forgiving price tag. Honestly, when it comes to building lineups, 10-7 is pretty easy to build around. So you could go, like Rory and even Xander at 9-9. That is expensive, but not super expensive, especially if like Fleetwood was your guy. You're using $28,600. That leaves you with about, $21,400. That's a $7,000 like average out to be like $7,000. You could put 2 7K golfers together and a 6K golfer pretty darn easy to follow that 10-9-8-7-7-6 method, and start lineups like this. Like this looks like a pretty good lineup. So keep all that in mind. This is definitely the first bucket I would look at, and I'm sure this is what we're going to look at with the anchor buckets, is the last year ones. Looking at the other ones, basically any other finish between 20th place to a missed cut. Each of the buckets in between are 0 to 2. There's no frequency that you want at least 1, except for when it comes to a missed cut. But our projection is actually 0 to 2. So it's kind of showing that, well, there you go. You can see it right here. We actually have about 10 less golfers this year than we do on average. Pretty decent strength of field points that go into it, but a very low success rate. Again, it's looking at all golfers who missed the cut the year before. This includes your PGA members, the guys that qualified to get here, but these are also the guys that aren't good enough to be on tour. So maybe they find their moment in the sun. Maybe they find themselves in contention, but most likely it's not going to happen. That is bringing this bucket, the success rate down pretty hard. But again, we have less than we normally do. So this frequency of 100% could be challenged this year and not work out. Plus, that's a pretty low frequency rate when it comes to how many years we see a golfer in the optimal lineup from the bucket. Not very good. I don't really want to talk about the rest of these buckets because you can do this on the cheat sheet if you truly wanted to. That first bucket was definitely something I wanted you guys to look at. But basically what you do if you're coming to the cheat sheet and you're seeing those projections, by the way, let me just pull up the cheat sheet so you can do this. I'll show you can do it yourself. You can go ahead and put that filter on the bucket system. I'm currently in the course history, but you could go to last year and, clear everything and then select last year. And you're going to see the same projections that I have. So then you can go to the dream sheet just like I was doing, put a filter on there, which is there already is one, and go to, whatever bucket you want to look at. So if you want to look at last year 2s, you can see it starts with Tony Finau, Joaquin Niemann. You see a bunch of names there, probably sort by salaries. Spieth is in this bucket. Spieth, Finau, and then when you go back to the bucket system, you're like, okay, this was last year 2s. I'm looking at last year 2s. The projection's 0 to 2. That's not super great. 80, like a 90% frequency rate. That's pretty good. Pretty good frequency rate of being the optimal lineup. Pretty decent. Top 5 frequencies, not super great, but this is taking into account all golfers that were in that bucket. So not terrible, I should say, because 9.94 is the highest. 8.57 is just below it. Not terrible. You know, have a pretty decent top 20 frequency. Not terrible. Like you can see all the cut, even cut made percentages and stuff like that. So it's not a terrible bucket to choose a golfer from. But just remember that your projection is 0 to 2 to be inside the top 10. That's not to say, select 0 to 2, but you could hear it that way. I hear it that way when I say I'm projecting 0 to 2. Just be cognizant that you can't always put, either the max number of the projection or maybe even sometimes the middle. You can only do one. But, we're looking at last year twos. You can see Spieth. You can see a lot of good names that you want to build lineups with. Here's the fun part about the bucket system. I'm giving you a max of 2. Because even if I think you have the ability to have more than 2, I just think 2 is going to be the max you're going to see in the optimal lineup from any of these guys. So if you're going to try to get fancy and like play Spieth with Lowry and then maybe Patrick Reed, probably not the way to go. Literally not the way to go. You could win a league matchup, certainly, but I don't think you're going to take down a GPP, and you're not going to hit the optimal lineup. So, again, I'm not going to go through each of the buckets. I just wanted to go over that one that was very prominent. So, if you wanted to look at last year 2s through last year 5, or actually even last year 6s, check out the cheat sheet, look at each of the golfers there, and then just understand how the projections work. Always round down with your minimums, always round up with your maximums, and this is projecting to be inside the top 10. So we move on to the next bucket, which is your last week bucket. So does it matter playing the week before? It appears it does not. Although having a top 20 finish the week before nets you 100% frequency rate of having at least one goal. I shouldn't say it that way. I kind of say it like as a golfer, but this is a bucket. A bucket contains all the golfers in it. So if all the golfers in it for all the past years dating back to 2013, that's where my stats come from. So of all the years this bucket has been in use, we have seen 100% frequency rate of having at least one golfer from the last week 1 bucket to be inside the top 10. We have 7 golfers in that bucket this year, where we usually see about 20. So the chances of having one in the optimal lineup's not super good, or even inside the top 10. Like this minimum by the end of this year might switch to 0. By the end of this tournament might switch to 0. However, we can go ahead and take a look. Here, how about this? Let's see if we can make our feelings feel a little bit better. What I like to do is come here. Basically, I want to hide all of this to look at our last year columns. So we'll hide that because I want to look at these top 10s because all these years are on top of each other. So just remember, this is our last week bucket, and this is our last week totals. So where we see 1, what's our number? How many total were there? So in 2021, there were 8 golfers in that bucket and 1 showed up inside the top 10. Because again, this is the top 10 table. So we can also look at other years where there were like, less than double digits. So we had 2019 where there were 8, 2016 where there were 9. Well, in 2019, we had 2 that were inside the top 10. In 2016, we also had 2 that were inside the top 10. So even though we have a limited amount of golfers, or a smaller number of golfers, still a pretty good success rate of golfers from that bucket finishing inside the top 10. One other thing to note would be your optimal lineups, right? So now we're looking at this column right here, this row, I should say. And when we had 8 in 2021, we had 0 in the optimal lineup. However, when we had 8 in 2019, we had 2 in the optimal lineup. Unfortunately, we didn't have salaries in 2016 to come up with optimal lineups, so it didn't work. We can't figure that one out. So I think you're on one of two sides. You're like, well, 7 isn't that far away from 8 and 9. Every single year we've seen 1 inside the top 10, even with that that low of totals. So again, you know, we're looking at this column here to go, well, if I were to, you know, I can't do it. But if you were to think like you just right down here. So we have 9 and 2, 8 and 2, 8 and 1. We have 7. We're going to get 1. So let's take a look at that bucket. It's a very intriguing bucket. So if you have any filters on your cheat sheet, make sure you go in and select everything. You know, you want to make sure there are no filters when you go and try to filter down to whatever you're trying to look at. Like what we're trying to do here is last week ones. Scotty Scheffler, Jason Day, Tyrrell Hatton, Adam Scott, Siwoo Kim, Seamus Power, Mackenzie Hughes. So now that we just broke it down, I don't see how you can do more than 2. I really don't. If you try to put 2 or more of these golfers in your lineup, I don't think you get close to the optimal lineup. I do think, though, 2 is not a terrible number to select because you obviously get Scotty Scheffler. You get a reasonably priced Jason Day, who just won the AT&T Byron Nelson. You also get Tyrrell Hatton, who is a part of the optimal lineup during the AT&T Byron Nelson. So you have 2 optimal lineup guys. Adam Scott was really close to being the optimal lineup, finished 8th last week. Siwoo Kim's a great player at $7,100. Pretty easy to fit him in your lineups. Seamus Power and Mac Hughes. So I was telling you also, Mac Hughes has won on tour. And I say that because he's in the 6K range. Seamus Power has also won on tour. All these guys have won on tour. So Mac Hughes might be a pretty decent 6K play. Or perhaps you don't play Mac Hughes at all and you play a different 6K golfer who is not, well, you just play a different 6K golfer because you'd rather play one of these guys up here. So I think your choice is, well, first of all, do you play any golfer from this bucket? Are you comfortable doing that? I don't know if I am, except for like Scotty. The rest of these guys are glue pieces. I don't feel comfortable anchoring around any of these golfers. I do like Adam Scott once again. He's in the 6K range or the 7K range. I do like Adam Scott. So he'll probably be in a bunch of my lineups. I think the guy's playing solid golf. You know, and I think someone like him, once he figures it out, it stays with him. It's not like I don't think he's a really streaky golfer. It's just there's been times where he's tried to change things, you know, especially when it comes to putting. But he's been a pretty decent putter as of late. So I don't mind someone like Adam Scott, especially his game hits the ball high enough, plays the right kind of golf for this golf course. So I do like Adam Scott. And I'm not going to disregard Siwoo Kim. So I think all this tells me is I'm not anchoring around Scotty Scheffler. I'm playing these guys. I'm just playing these guys percentage wise. So super interesting, right? I find that fascinating. I'm glad to go through that, to think of that. The rest of the buckets, once again, I'm going to leave up to you. 0 to 2. Remember okay, so this is when I did not say this during the last year buckets. There needs to be a 2-point gap between your minimum and maximum at all times. And you, because you can't go into the negative for a projection, it'll always be 0. That means the max, so if the min is 0, the max will always be 2, unless the max is actually greater than 2, which really never, ever happens. But keep that in mind. If your min is 0, your max will automatically be 2. Automatically. You want a 2-point buffer between the two. Something I just learned doing this years and years and years. You can't be too precise when it comes to your projections. You just want that 2-point buffer because, hey, it's golf. Any little small thing can happen. You know, someone might hit a pebble on a green, or not even a pebble. Let's say a ball mark on a green, because we've seen that a couple times, and it, you know, shoots your ball in a different direction or just barely makes you miss a hole. That one stroke is the difference between, you know, a golfer in a different bucket being in the optimal lineup versus, you know, one of the other golfers that you're like, no, I can't, or one of the other buckets that might have a second golfer in it now where you were only thinking it's going to be 1. So little small things like that can happen to change. So why not account for it? Let's just have a 2-point buffer. The major bucket is your last week sixes. So how this reads is 4 to 7. That's what's being projected to be inside the top 10. You don't have this on your sheet, but this max projection just gives me kind of an idea. Like, okay, let's take the sweet spot scores into account. Now that it's a little bit closer to each other, what is our new max projection? So I call this my conservative max projection. You still round up, so this goes up to 6. You still want at least a 2-point buffer between the two. So your max is 6, your minimum will always be 4. That also kind of coincides with what the minimum already is. But one thing I've also learned, when your max is 6, you want your min to be 3. I know, I'm just making it up on the fly. But whenever I have my max at 6, I always have my min at 3, and that's what I'll probably be doing on the optimizer. So when you look at last week's sixes, we have 4 of our 10K golfers in there. You have 9 of your 9K golfers in that bucket. You have 7 of the 11 8K golfers in it, and then it's just a slew of 7 and 6K golfers. So very well could have 7 golfers from this bucket inside the top 10. I mean, it just looks super easy to get there. So this is probably the bucket, you know, minus the last year 1 bucket. Or I mean, not last year 1, last week 1 bucket. If you're trying to determine if you want at least 1, maybe 2, you're basically taking away a spot from this bucket. Because this bucket could actually, you could build a lineup of 6 golfers from this bucket, and it would be just fine. But remember, there's been 1 golfer from that other bucket, the last week 1 bucket, 1 every single year to be inside the top 10. Just remember that. Now, not every year is 1 been in the optimal lineup, but 1 has been inside the top 10, and that gives you a pretty good chance to hit the optimal with that golfer. So you can go 1 there, and maybe 5 from this bucket, maybe 4 from this bucket, and 1 from another one. Up to you. Just keep in mind the bucket totals from each of those buckets, the success rates. You can even do your simple math this way to make yourself feel comfortable. Look at the projections, whatever you want to do. All available to you on the cheat sheet. All right, let's move on to basically tournament history, but I have it. Oh, I do have it as tournament history. I was gonna say I probably have it as course history. The tournament history does look at the course history portion of the cheat sheet. So you're going to see course history. This should actually say tournament history. You can change it on your end if you want. I'll just keep it as is. It's really looking at this, and whatever the ranges are in here, that is what bucket they are put into. So when it comes to this one, having the best tournament history, is it a good thing? Well, there's a 20% success rate. So yes, I would say so. We do have 7 golfers in that, or in the bucket this year, where we normally see around 8. So yeah, it's pretty darn close to what we normally see every single year. Not 100% frequency rate of having at least 1 inside the top 10, and definitely not 100% frequency rate of having 1 in the optimal lineup. So this is your best course history. Has a high success rate. Let's go check to see who those golfers are. So again, if you're following along with me on the cheat sheet, just select everyone from all the other filters that you might have on, and we're just going to look at course history 1, which is technically tournament history 1. Look at who's on the top. Brooks Koepka. Super interesting. The projection for this bucket is 0 to 2. It's not 100% frequency rate, but I have a feeling like someone like Brooks Koepka is most likely going to be a golfer that's going to break that mold. So I find this a very intriguing bucket just because Brooks is at the top of it. There's not a lot of strength of field points going towards it, but that has a lot to do with live. These golfers being in live and the OWGR points not being super high. Same with the FedEx Cup because they were obviously kicked out last year. They're not going to have a lot of FedEx Cup points. So Not a lot of strength of field points go towards this bucket, and that's kind of why it hurts the projections a little bit. But you have powerhouses like Koepka and Young. You also have last week's winner and Jason Day. Abe Answer has played this tournament pretty darn well. I think he has like 3 years, maybe 4 years of experience and an average finishing spot of 19. It's pretty darn good. Davis Riley is here. I think him, Mito, and Seamus, they all have their 1 year of experience. You might be able just to cross them off. And if you do, just don't play them, period. You know, you're most likely looking at Koepka, Young, Day, and maybe Answer. And really, Cam Young only has 1 year of course history as well. But very talented golfer, so do with it as you will. I think that's a really interesting bucket. The next two buckets are kind of where your money, like where you want to really focus some of your lineups around, because in the tournament history 2 bucket, we're looking at a minimum of 2 to 4. Now, I still look at my max projection over here. This is my conservative max projection. This would be 3, which automatically means this goes down to 1. Because this max is 3, my min goes to 1, but my actual maximum stays at 4. So that bucket would be 1 to 4, and this other bucket's 1 to 3. So tournament history 2 bucket would again be 1 to 4. Tournament history 3 would be 1 to 3. And you can see the rest are 0 to 2. The rest of the buckets are 0 to 2. You can all do your analysis, your deductions based off of the success rates, how many golfers are in those buckets versus what we see on average per year, and try to figure out which golfers work best for you. But if we were just to look at the 2 buckets we were kind of talking about, course history 2, remember this is a 1 to 4 bucket, and it's perfect because you have 4 10K golfers that are here at the top. 2 of those guys could easily be inside the top 10. Easily. And if that's the case, that still, you know, fulfills the projection, but you probably can't play both of them. Same kind of goes with your 9K golfers that are up here. Maybe it's difficult. Maybe we have Rahm and McIlroy inside the top 10 with, say, Tony Finau and Victor Hovland. So we have 4 golfers. That is what our max projection is. You can't play. It'd be really hard to play 3 of these guys together, let alone 2. I mean, you could do 2, but 3 is pushing it. You know, especially if you do Rahm at $11,400, $9,500 Tony Finau, and $9,100 Victor Hovland. You're left. I mean, you're spending $30,000 on these 3 golfers. The salary cap is $50,000, so you only have $20,000 left. You divide that by 3, it's less than $7,000 for your remaining players. So you're most likely going to have to grab 2 6K golfers, and that's not going to be very successful for you, I don't think, for this week. So you want to think about the projections, what could realistically happen, and if those things do happen, then how likely is it that you can actually play golfers from that bucket? So keep all of that in mind when you're building lineups. That's all that I bring that up for, because those are things that I've caught myself doing in the past that screw my lineups. Like you can't build good lineups doing that. So you can't be super specific. You have to think about the projections, think about the likelihood of which golfers from a bucket, especially this one, are going to finish inside the top 10. My boy Adam Scott's down here. I really like Justin Rose and Ricky Fowler this week, but when you have these guys up here, it might be difficult. And oh, by the way, we could still have 5, 6, even 7 golfers finish inside the top 10 in this bucket, and you still can only play 3 or even 2 in your to be in the optimal lineup. That also could be a thing. So that would only be if like 6 of these guys here that are $9,000 and above finish inside the top 10 with like Adam Scott or Justin Rose or Ricky Fowler. So just keep that in mind. Remember that projection was 1 to 4. Now the other one we want to look at is tournament history 3, and that's 1 to 3. And that starts with Xander Schauffele, which is super interesting. I really like Schauffele this week. Him being in this bucket at the top by himself, Like, so now how my brain works, it's like, yeah, okay, this makes me kind of want to anchor around Shoffley. Well, what can I do with that last bucket I was looking at? The projection here is 1 to 4. So you start creating like scenarios in your head. I forget what it's really called, but so Shoffley's at $9,900. When I build a lineup, well, I kind of want to have Adam Scott in my lineup, and now I kind of want Ricky Fowler in my lineup. Now, are these two guys better than any of these guys up here? No, I don't think so. But if I'm trying to piece together a story where Xander's in the optimal lineup, and still you want, you know, the projections 1 to 4 from this one, I probably want at least 1, maybe 2. Who do I pair Xander with? Do I go with Rory? See, I couldn't do Rory and Finau, although we were talking about Rory, Finau, and Xander, and that leaves us with like $7,000. So we could do that. Certainly could. Or maybe we go Xander, Finau, maybe Hovland Scott, or Hovland Rose, Hovland Fowler. Maybe we do that. We get those 3 guys to go with Xander. So now we have 3 9K golfers, and now we have 1 7K. That's pretty decent. Those are all, you know, scenarios that could happen. Now, I'm going to leave it to the bucket system to build my lineups. I used to build this way because that's just how my brain works. If you're already fatigued listening to that, I understand, because I got fatigued all the time trying to put all these like storylines together, essentially. But yeah, that's what you could do. Now, these are your 2 buckets you kind of want to focus at least finding 1 golfer from. Not necessarily getting too cute and trying to find 2 or 3 golfers from. You know, build your lineups that make sense. You know, we obviously went through the tournament history 1 bucket, figured that one out. So figure out what 2 and 3 look like for you, and then maybe 4 through 6 you can consider. Just remember the projections are 0 to 2, very low success rate, not a high frequency rate to be inside the top 10 or in the optimal lineup. So be considerate of that, or cognizant of that. The next bucket to look at is our recent form buckets. So I'm looking at the last 7 weeks, and we're looking at average finishing position for the last 7 weeks. When you include this week, that's 8 total weeks. That's 2 months. I like to look at 2 months worth of data for my recent form, and you can see having good recent form are your top buckets for frequency rate, not so much success rate, but you can see it. 1 golfer from each of these buckets finishes inside the top 10 every single year. Not so much when it comes to the optimal lineup. Like, I would say our most successful bucket would be recent form 1, but there's only an 83% frequency rate of being the optimal lineup there. Whereas recent form 3 is actually one of our lower success rates for the top 3 buckets, but has a 100% frequency rate. That's mostly because you might have a 6K golfer or a 7K golfer, like a low 7K golfer from that bucket, that finishes, you know, like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th place. That is required to put the other top names together with whatever that golfer is to make a lineup under $50,000 to be an optimal lineup to be in the optimal lineup. Now, the other thing to take with that is how many golfers are in the bucket versus on average. Just like I've been going through with all of the other buckets, you do want to look at those things. Those numbers do go into the projections, by the way, but what you want to look at is the success rate, the frequency rate with just top 10s and optimal lineups. I think you actually have, I do too, but I'm not quite looking at it. You have top 5 frequencies, top 20 frequencies, as well as cut frequencies. So you can look at all that stuff. Look at this. Just one, I could expand it on my side, but you can see it here. You get top 5 frequencies, 1 out of 4. I mean, like a minimum of a 1 from this bucket. Now, of all golfers in this bucket, 10% of them finish inside the top 5. You've got 21 this year. 10% of 21 is 2. So the likelihood we see 2 golfers from that bucket to be inside the top 10. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong bucket. Stupid. Recent form 1s. I got way ahead of myself, got way too excited. So recent form ones. Some of you guys are probably like, well, dude, hey, settle down there, sir. Anyways, so it doesn't really work out as well as the last year bucket did, but it's just showing you the last year one is the bucket you really want to look at. Top 5 frequencies. It's obviously a good one to look at. We don't have at least one every single year, so be careful with that. Anyways, enough of this, you know, I wouldn't say so much doomsday, you know, thought process, but recent form ones, projection is 1 to 4. Recent form twos, the projection is 1 to 4. Recent form threes, the projection is 1 to 3, but it's almost 0 to 2. You see that over here? Or it's 0 to 3. Almost 0 to 3. So this is a very risky bucket. We got to keep, let's just look at that one first. Recent form threes. Because the other ones that we were looking at were 1 to 3, right? 1 to 4. So recent form threes. This is close to being 0 to 3 for our projection, but it's technically 1 to 3. Interesting names. Colin Morikawa. Probably not playing him at all. You know what? I'll build one lineup with him, and we'll see who I pair him with. Yeah, I think I play one lineup with him. That'll be a FOMO lineup, and it'll be in a winner take all. And that should be good enough. JT's in this one. So is Jason Day. I do like Jason Day's course fit, but I almost kind of want to fade him, full fade him. DJ, so like, this is already becoming a very volatile bucket to even think about picking a golfer from. These are all volatile golfers. There's not one guy here that I can think of that is just a beacon of consistency. Maybe Jason Day, but no one else. I can't think of anyone else below or above that's like, yep, nope, I want to play that guy. That's crazy. Okay, so to use the same kind of thought process that we did before, there's a 10% success rate of golfers from this bucket. There are 30 golfers in the bucket. So if we want to think like that's 10%, if we use like 10% success rate out of 30, that means 3 have the likelihood to be inside the top 10 just based off of that success rate. I don't think that's the case, but 2's looking pretty good. And I could find 2 golfers I could put in my lineups, especially when you look at the 6K range. Like, look where it starts. We had 17 6K golfers in this bucket. A lot of them we already talked about when it comes to winning. That's one of the trends we saw when it came to 6K golfers at the PGA Championship. They've had a PGA Tour victory, or they go on to have a PGA Tour victory later on, which is obviously impossible to forecast. But, you know, again, Wise has won on tour, Hadwin has won, Hoagie has won, Harmon has won. Peters is not, and I don't think he's going to because he's on Live Tour. Like, I don't think he's going to have a victory in the future. Pendrith, on the other hand, I could see having a victory in the future. Hughes has already won on tour. Molinari, Straka, Svensson, Hardy. Hubbard has not. I don't think he will. Sugg could. Donald has. And the other 3 guys, I don't think so. Maybe Lee Hodges, but that might be a Barracuda Barbasol thing, which obviously that would be our Ches Reeves and our Eric Van Rooyens from previous. So what do we have? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 golfers in the 6K range that we already mentioned in the 6K range before of golfers having won on tour, fitting that trend of 6K golfers who have won on tour being in the optimal lineup or being inside the top 10, which is going to be probably required. So just seeing that from this bucket and not really feeling super comfortable with the rest of the golfers up here makes me want to dip my toes into the 6K range from the recent Form 3 bucket. I might play all these guys single digit ownership. I don't think I want a lot of exposure to a lot of these golfers. It's crazy, man. Crazy. And I'm cool with that, though, actually. I'm super cool with that. This is actually kind of validating. So I actually have a placeholder lineup that has Cam Davis in it as well as Keith Mitchell, because I kind of like those guys. Could still work out. I mean, those could be my two guys, but I really like the 6K range from this bucket. It's by far my favorite 6K range. I mean, we haven't really looked at any of the other ones from the other buckets, but I really like this one. All right, so recent form ones, was that 1 to 4 we wanted or 1 to 3? 1 to 4. 1 to 4 for the next two. So I say we want 1 to 4, but again, it's a projection to be inside the top 10. We might not be able to play, you know, more than one, depending on the price tags. So keep that in mind. I'm seeing a lot of ROM being in these buckets that I really want to play. And same with Scotty. So ROM and Scotty seem pretty interesting. But there was a bucket that Scheffler was in that wasn't a super highly successful bucket. So now when I think of tiebreakers, if I like these guys kind of the same, I use the buckets. And I think I would rather play Jon Rahm. And again, this is a projection. This bucket is a projection of 1 to 4. I kind of like the idea of starting Rahm and Schauffele. I really like Xander this week. A lot of people do. But, you know, I've already talked about Fowler. I don't mind Fowler. I do like Fleetwood. And I guess that might be it. So maybe I've already figured out what my anchor play is out of this bucket. I think it's Rahm and Schauffele. I think that's fine. I go Rahm, Schauffele. I keep the projections open 1 to 4, and I let the optimizer select any of these other guys. I think that's fine. Cool. Hopefully I remember this when it comes to building lineups. I hope. I should probably just replay it while I'm building lineups. And then the next bucket that was 1 to 4 was recent form 2s. Which is really interesting. Like Finau's here. I kind of like Finau this week. A lot of people do, from what I hear, the sentiment online. Probably staying away from Spieth, as most people are. I don't mind Cam Smith. I also don't mind Cam Young. I don't mind. There's a lot of good golfers up here. So if I were to go Rahm in that other bucket, I could literally just go Rahm and that's it. It still would fulfill that 1 to 4 projection, and I could probably pick 2 to 3 golfers from here because I do like Adam Scott, I do like Keegan Bradley, I do like Justin Rose. Hard for me not to play any of those guys, but then when I look up, Victor Hovland I want to play. I want to play Cam Young. I want to play Tony Finau. So who knows? Maybe I do like 30. Do I go all in on Rahm? Off the tee, it looked like you wanted to fade more than you wanted to draw. I mean, Rahm and Scheffler, they both hit fades. And Scheffler was looking really good off the tee at the Byron Nelson. Like, he just couldn't miss. There was some that he did, but, I mean, his swing looks so good. Oof. I know Charlotte Cardin's going to play Sam Burns. This is just going to make you feel like playing Sam Burns, which isn't a terrible choice either. Shoot. You know, that other bucket, yeah, this is difficult too, because then we also have what? Our 6K range is kind of gross, but 7K range is okay. Like the whole 7K range that's here seems pretty decent. I don't know. Hard. 1 to 4. I'll leave you to the other recent form buckets. They're 0 to 2, so, you know, don't play more than 2 golfers from those buckets. Check out the cheat sheet once again. You can follow along with me and make your decisions that way. Now we kind of get into our miscellaneous buckets, I guess, if you want to call them that. We start with salaries. Now, we already kind of covered this in our pass optimal and GPP winning lineups. Salary ones are your 10K range. Normally, when I go through this, we see this projection for the 10K range being like at least 1 to 3. It's a really high success rate, 35%. 5 golfers in it. So even if we did 30% for 5 golfers, we're looking at, you know, 2, 2.5, 3, 2 to 3, and our projection 0 to 2. Sure, I could see it being 0 to 2. Well, actually, let me take that back. So really 30% of 5 is 1.5. So it's really 1.5, 2. So yeah, our projection of 0 to 2 is pretty good, but it's kind of telling you want at least one 10K golfer. That's kind of what I'm thinking about. I'm multiplying this number by this number. So 0 to 2 is a projection, but I think it's a pretty good likelihood at least 1, if not 2, finish inside the top 10 from the 10K range. 1 is our max when it comes to optimal lineups, and it's not always in the optimal lineup, by the way. That's okay. I'm okay with that. When we look at our range of 10K golfers, we've got Rahm, Scotty, McIlroy, Morikawa, and Koepka. I could, yeah, 2 guys from this range being inside the top 10. I think that's, yeah, pretty solid, pretty simple. Rory is in the best bucket, the last year 1 bucket, by the way. Whereas Rahm is in the last year 3 bucket, which isn't a super good bucket to be in. Scotty's in an okay bucket, being in the missed cut bucket for last year. I think it's those 3. You got to choose between those 3. I know a lot of people are going to be on Koepka, and I think Koepka's a good choice because obviously he's a major killer, and you know he really dials down or dials it up at major championships. So the only person I just can't get behind is Morikawa, really. And I think that's fine. I don't mind that. Not playing Morikawa or playing at least just one lineup of him, and that's it. That's fine. Rahm, Scheffler, McIlroy, I like. Koepka, I like. I don't mind that. 9K range, 1 to 2. But remember, we want a 2-point buffer, so it's 0 to 2. I think at least 1 would be fine. And I'm really starting to see the 10-9-8 scenario working out really good. So 10-9-8, 7-7-6, or 7-7-7 would be a good choice too. Yeah, 10-9-8, 7-7-6, because also your 8K range is 1 to 2, which again is 0 to 2. Really high success rate here, pretty decent frequency rate. There's a lot of different scenarios that could happen. You could have a 10, 2 9s, 0 8s, and then whatever 7s and 6. You could have 0 10s, a 9, 2 8s, or maybe even 3 8s. Although I don't think 3 8s is going to be the thing. Maybe, definitely could happen. Or 2 9s, 2 8s, maybe a 7 and a 6. Look at that. The high 6K range, by the way, 6.5 and higher. The minimum is 1. Now it's 1 to 2, which obviously, again, you need that 2-point buffer, 0 to 2. But 1 has been inside the top 10 every single year. 1 of the 7K golfers has been inside the optimal lineup every single year. Or I should say 1 7K golfer's always been in the optimal lineup. So it's really, really looking like figuring out, I mean, you want a 7 and a 6 in your lineup, it seems like. I think that's a smart way to go. 7 and a 6. And then you just need to figure out the combination up top. What do you want to do? You want to do 10-9-8? Do you want to do 9-9-8? Do you want to do 9-9-9? 7-7-6? Do you want to do 9-9-8-7-6? There's a lot of combinations you could do, but I'm really liking going 10-9-8 because I don't see a scenario. Oh, I do, but I have a feel like 90%. I want to say there's a 90% chance we're going to see a 10K golfer inside the top 5 or even just win this event. Like for how good Rahm has been playing, how good Scotty Scheffler has been playing, I don't see one of those guys not being inside the top 5. And if that's the case, then you do want to start with the 10. Then I also don't want to discard the 9K range because you get a lot of good golfers in the 9K range, including Schauffele, Xander Schauffele, and Tony Finau. So anyways, yeah, lots of interesting choices here. This screams the 10-9-8-7-7-6 approach so hard. And I think that's what I'm going to do. And then the last bucket to look at are strokes gained buckets. Again, watch the strokes gained explain video in the description of this video. You can find a link to that, I should say. Go watch the strokes gained portion of it, because if I explain the full thing here, it'll take 30 minutes. When it comes to strokes gained 1 golfers, this is all strokes gained stats are positive. We have 26 golfers in that field. It's kind of funny. I was looking at this when it comes to the buckets, when it comes to like the totals. It fluctuates a ton. Let's see here. Where are we? Oh, I hid buckets. There we go. So we've got totals here. 26 strokes gained 1 golfers this year. We had 16 last year, but we had 27 the year before that. 21, 22, and then 17. So we've had years, you know, where this all has happened. So I guess if we look at 20 and above, we scroll up to the ones that are 20 and above, which are just really these columns right here. We scroll up to 10s. We had 5 strokes gained 1 golfers inside the top 10. 3, 5. So something to look at. Even when it comes to top 5 finishers, 3, 2, 2. So the projection, 2 to 4. Pretty solid projection, because I think we want at least 2 strokes gained 1 golfers. Here's the great thing about my cheat sheet. You don't even have to do filter, you know, out by ones or anything like that. Sort from A to Z. And you can see all these golfers are color coded. So we want 2 to 4 strokes gained 1 golfers. There's Rahm and Rory. Already talked about it. I want one of those guys in my lineups. I also do want Schauffele in my lineup, and I also want Finau in my lineup. Those are all golfers I want in my lineups. So I gotta make some decisions because that's difficult to make. 2 to 4 being inside the top 10. I could see anchoring around 2 of these guys, whether it's Rahm and Finau, or Rahm and Xander, or maybe it's Rory and Xander, or Rory and Finau, or anyone else that's in this bucket. Maybe we add a third. Again, the projection's 2 to 4. So look at that. There's Ricky Fowler down there. There's Keegan Bradley. Lots of choices. The next bucket's 0 to 2, which is really interesting. We have Brooks Koepka in that bucket, Victor Hovland, Adam Scott. I really like Adam Scott, but I don't think Adam Scott should really be in this bucket. I imagine it's because his around the green stats have to be low. His approach, his calendar year long. It's not season long. It goes back 1 year. My strokes gained stats. He's minus. He's in the minus. But if you're positive off the tee, that's all that matters. So, anyways, interesting. That's not a good sign. Having negative approach. I'm sure he's been positive elsewhere. Like recent form, he might be positive. No, he's negative again. Here's the thing. When you're hitting the ball so well off the tee, having negative approach is going to be kind of common. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Yeah, especially when his peers around him have positive, just as the same. Like Taylor Moore hits the ball off the tee better than he does, and he's got positive approach. That's basically 0, but still. Hovland, 0.5 off the tee, 0.4 approach. Like, geez, I didn't even notice that before. Anyways, 0 to 2 golfers in this bucket. The next one's actually really interesting. The strokes gained 3 bucket, 1 to 4 is the projection to be inside the top 10. 3 is the max projection, like the conservative max projection, but minimum's already 1, so we don't have to drop it down. We've had at least 3 inside the top 10 from this bucket every single year. So when you look at price tags, because I think about price tags right away. If we've seen at least 3 inside the top 10, is there a possibility we see that again this year? And if so, if we don't see the optimal lineup having, you know, that many golfers in it, like when you look at it, we've had up to 4. Wow. 80% success rate. This is something we need to look deeper into. So I am once again going to hide these columns, or these rows, I should say, and focus so here's our strokes gained 3 for our optimal lineups. We had 0 in 2021. Coincidentally, we also had the least amount of golfers we've seen in that bucket any year that I've tracked it. So there's 27 that year. We also saw another year where there was 28, and we only had 2 golfers from that bucket in the optimal lineup. However, when it's more than 20, 39, 34, 31, we have respectively 3, 4, 4 in the optimal lineup, and we have 37 this year. Wow. I guess if we look at top 10s are pretty consistent. How do we have 1? I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong bucket. This is the bucket we need to look at. Okay, that's insane. So Team No Putt is kind of what you want to look for when building lineups this week, apparently. Okay. This is insane. Let's see, 2022. Who are our strokes gained 3 guys? Will Zalatoris, Mito Pereira, Chris Kirk. 2 6K golfers and an 8K golfer. 7 and a 6. They were not in the optimal lineup, but they're inside the top 10. Okay, that was 2022. 2021. Your strokes gained 3 golfers were Shane Lowry, Zalatoris again, Scotty Scheffler, by the way, Colin Morikawa. Scheffler, Morikawa, and Zalatoris were not in the optimal lineup, by the way. Neither was Shane Lowry. Is this the year we had 0? 2021? 2021 was the year we had 0. That represented the optimal lineup from the anchor, or from the strokes gained 3 buckets. Let's see here. When it comes to optimal lineups, this is how we determine what's a strokes gained 3. We look at off the tee and negative putting. Off the tee, negative putting. Off the tee, negative putting. Off the tee, negative putting. There you go. We have 4 strokes gained 3 golfers right here at the top. I imagine those are going to be our guys we want to look at. And I guess we have 1 more right. 2 more. These are also strokes gained 3 golfers. Okay, let's see. Are any of those guys optimal lineup guys? Scheffler once again, $7,300. He was an optimal lineup guy. And then Casey, Dustin Johnson, and Morikawa were also. This was TPC Harding Park. So nothing more than a $9,000 golfer, by the way. And just to kind of, myself, I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the 10K golfers that could have been strokes gained 3 guys. I was looking at strokes gained 1. Looks like this guy was a strokes gained 3. The only guy I see with negative putting up top. So when it comes in $10,000 golfers, Brooks Koepka was the only guy back in 2020, and he finished 29th place. This is our result. A little messier back then, but still can figure it out. He's really the only guy that was strokes gained 3. DJ was as well. Obviously, he was part of the optimal lineup. So too was Colin Morikawa. Victor Hovland was, but he was not in the optimal lineup, but Jason Day was. So interesting there. No 10K golfers that were strokes gained 3 golfers in the optimal in 2020, 2019. Let's hide some of this information. We don't need this. Probably don't need that either. Okay. So let me put a filter on this and just look at our salaries top to bottom. So putting, do we have anyone that was negative? Nobody. Everybody had positive putting up top. That's crazy. Matsuyama was a negative putter, and so too was Paul Casey. But yeah, it doesn't look like there were a lot of negative putters. I don't know. That doesn't seem right. I mean, like Brooks Koepka would have been really close to strokes gained 3 golfer. Like his putting was pretty close to being under. Like he's obviously over. He's almost at 0.1. He was close. That's about it. Trying to like figure out like how close these guys were to try to compare this year. And then in 2018, let's actually go salaries top to bottom. We have a negative putter in Jordan Spieth, believe it or not. He finished 12th. Brooks Koepka won it. He was a negative putter. So he's a strokes gained 3 guy. Okay. I think that's enough to... Not many 10K golfers are in the optimal... no 10K golfers that were in the strokes gained 3 bucket are in the optimal lineup any single year. Like Brooks Koepka was that one year, but he was positive putting, but barely. So I don't know. That doesn't really do enough to sway me off of like someone like Scottie Scheffler, but I'm not touching Colin Morikawa. I don't care. Instead, I think it makes this range pretty live. The 9 and the 8Ks were where it was at when it came to strokes gained 3 golfers. So if you're a superstitious type and you think that has any correlation to success, JT, Cam Young, Dustin Johnson, Shane Lowry, those all seem like okay plays. Decisions, man, decisions. Like $9,200 Cam Young. If we think about who we want to build lineups around, like we wanted to go Rahm or Scheffler, which I don't think we go Scheffler if we go with Young. If you wanted to go Rahm or even McIlroy. If you went with Cameron Young, you would have to skip out on Tony Finau and Xander Schauffele, who seem like good plays, or you don't play Rahm, you don't play McIlroy, but you start with Xander, and then you start with Finau, and then you also add Cam Young. And then you do 776. 999-776. I have to build one of those lineups. Have to. Maybe I build like 4 or 5 of them. I like them too much. Oh, all right. So anyways, projection for this bucket, 1 to 4. So 1 to 4. How many you can fit in your lineup? I don't know. I don't know how many will fit in the optimal lineup, but I feel like at least one of these guys here, 8,300 and above, pretty good shot, pretty good choice. And then you can fill in these guys with like glue pieces. Oof. Strokes gained 4. The rest of the buckets are 0 to 2. So I'll leave you at that. You can see Cam Smith was one of them. Hideki Matsuyama. No one really in the stroke chain 5 worth playing. Even Webb. I wouldn't even waste your time. And then here you go. Here's your PGA members. There's 15 of them here. I believe Wyatt is another one. I think Ben Kern is another. Alex Beach is one. Michael Block is another. I imagine Colin Inglis is. That's probably it, right? Yeah, so 20. So 20 PGA members. That sounds about right. Okay. So anyways, that wraps up the stroke chain stats. That wraps up the bucket system for the AT&T Byron Nelson. Oh, Jesus Christ. Cut that out. That wraps it up for the 2023 PGA Championship. So I've got nothing else. I will put a strategy video out once I get let's go here. I'll put a strategy show out when the tee times come out, and I will provide the marquee tee times with that, but unfortunately won't be able to go live. And I'm hoping to get that video out early tomorrow. So it really depends on the PGA Championship and how they're going to get that information. Like when are they going to get that information out? Is it going to be early in the day? If it is, wonderful, because then I'll be able to update it right away. If not, you might not have a strategy video until Wednesday, which I don't want to think about. Maybe I can break free, because like I said, I'll be on a deployment call all night tomorrow from like 7 to midnight. It's an all hands on deck thing, and we've got a lot of stuff we're deploying to production. So unfortunately, I can't really get out of that, even if I wanted to, or even if I tried. If I did, I'd be a terrible team member. So can't really do that, despite this being a major championship week. So look out for the strategy video, hopefully again tomorrow, if not Wednesday. By the way, if you'd like me to do a live chat Wednesday, let me know what time works best for you down in the comment section. That'll also act as a way to give you an entry into the weekly and monthly giveaway that you see on the screen. I ran a giveaway earlier tonight. $5 went to Joanne, so congratulations, Joanne. Any of you that want a chance to win $5, you just gotta participate on the channel. And also a reminder, Prize Picks. If you're not signed up on Prize Picks, you can check out the link in the description. It'll send you straight to the sign up. It'll send you to the homepage. Once you click sign up, the Sweet Spot promo code will already be populated. If you put at least $20 in your account, I'm gonna give you $20 back. Plus Prize Picks will match your deposit up to $100. And then the cheat sheet was available for you to follow. Again, there's a link for that in the description. And tomorrow I will have an optimizer ready. If you want access to that, be subscribed, comment on any of the videos I put out there, and then email me at sweetspotdfs@gmail.com, letting me know you are interested in the optimizer. And that's all that I have. So with that being said, thank you for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.